Hello everyone, I'm Yuchen. Today our group, Zheng, Tianqing, Mingkun, will introduce the analysis of coronavirus to you guys. Next slide, please. From agenda, we can see there are 4 parts of our analysis. Then let me to introduce the first part of overview. Coronavirus is a worldwide pandemic, and the outbreak is serious in the United States. We can see the map. It's all right now. Till now, the confirmed case in the United States is over 1.1 million. Then let's see the next page. Let's watch the live chart, please. The live chart, which shows the trend in the United States. The chart shows the United States diagnosis start to surge in March. And let's look at the graph of the confirmed case before March 1st. We can see the epidemic is mainly concentrated in California and Washington, and most of them are the tourist and Diamond Princess and Wuhan evacuation. That's the overview part. Then let Tianqing to continue introduce.
From the live chart we just showed and the chart here, we can really see after February, New York started to catch up, eventually become the #1 state with most confirmed cases. The first case was reported on March 1st. It's a woman with a recent travel history to Iran. The second case was reported the second day, which is March 2nd. He has no recent travel history, and he resides in Westchester, which suggests community spread. Next slide, please. We use this data set to study the spread of COVID-19. The data set uses smartphone movement data, which means a smartphone was pinned at the current location and 14 days before at the pre-location. Next slide, please. As mentioned before, the second case, which suggests community spread, he is from Westchester, and we can see on here, the larger the circle means the more the confirmed cases. The largest circle in the graph is Westchester. Next slide, please. On March 7th, Governor Cuomo declared a state emergency. By that time, they had 91 confirmed cases. On March 20th, he signed a New York State on pause executive order. By then, they had 8,530 confirmed cases, which is a 9,273% increase. Next slide, please. In this graph, we can really see the New York confirmed cases start to shoot up in March. Next slide, please. We fetched the device number from our data. The device number means the number of phones pinned at public locations active. During this time, the number of devices traveled to New York has declined. 13 days before and after March 7th, the decline was 8.77%, and 13 days before and after March 20th, the decline was 8.55%. Next slide, please. We compared the New York and California number. As comparison, California declared state emergency on March 4th, issued stay-at-home order on March 19th, which is a little bit ahead of New York. 15 days before and after March 4th, which is the day they declared state emergency, the decline was 9.78%. 15 days before and after March 19th, which is the day they issued stay-at-home order, the decline was 10.52. As we can see on the graph, the decline in California is much more prominent than the decline in New York. Next slide, please. And here now, I'm gonna let Mingkun take over.
After observing how the number of cases change inside New York, we can now look at how the virus developed in the New York surrounding area. First, we extract the data of the number of total cases in New York and surrounding 4 states. From this line chart, we can clearly see that the outbreak first happened in New York, the red line. The other 4 states started to grow after the red line, which means the outbreak in other 4 states are greater than the outbreak in New York. Then we next page, please. Then we fetch data of smartphone location explorer index in these 5 states and combine these 2 data sets together. On this graph, the colored lines represents the share of smartphones that pinned in the state at a given date that have traveled to New York in the past 14 days. The line can show that how many people have traveled to New York in the past 14 days. For example, you can look at the blue line. This means that this can represent that how the share of the phones that are used in New Jersey today, which has been used in New York in the past 14 days. The colored area shows the number of virus cases in these states in the past time. We can see that after the stay-at-home order published on March 20th, the outflow of the people from New York has dropped significantly. And the outbreak in these 4 states started following the outbreak in New York. From these 2 charts, we may assume that the outbreak in New York caused the outbreaks in the surrounding 4 states. Now let's Jonathan introduce the SEIR model for you.
Okay, so we combine the real-time data as well as the mathematical model into the SEIR models. This is common one in the using the epidemiology. It divided the population according to the infection status into 4 stages: the susceptible, the exposed, infected, and recovered. And there are also 3 parameters that's used to describe how the disease is spreading. Here's the New York State initial SEIR model. Based on the model, you can see it's the peak date, which means the maximum remaining confirmed case. It will happen after the March 1st. It will happen approximately 65 days. And there will also probably 10% of the population will be infected for the coronavirus. Many of you have seen this graph before. Keep social distance and flatten the curve. But how does it mean? It means that the social distance effort, we introduced the social distance into our the models, and here revised the curves, revised the model showing the curve. As you can see, the middle one, which is the green line, and also the yellow line, show the actual exposed and also the infected curve. Based on the calculation that the Tianqing mentioned about, only 8.77% people, the movements were decreased. So as you can see, with that effort, the curve was a little bit flattened. What if the New York government, they do a more effective social distancing effort? For example, what if they increasing the 20% of the social distancing effort? As you can see, the purple line and also the brown line, that the curve was significantly flattened. Here the second one. So the New York implemented the stay-at-home order in the March 20th. So our assumption is that what if the government implements early? And here we implement the stay-at-home order in the March 15th. As you can see, the peak date, which the maximum number confirmed cases was postponed 5 days later into the middle of May. And combining these 2 together, the more efficient social distance and the earlier stay-at-home order, as you can see, the peak date, which the maximum confirmed case will postpone to the 75 days, which will be the early of the June, compared to the original one, which is early of May, 1 month later. And also the total population that will be infected dropped to only 6%. That would be 1.1 million people. it also saves a lot of light and lower the pressure of the medical supplies. So here's our conclusion. First, New York State was way behind in the coronavirus response. And also the leadership in New York State should action sooner to respond to coronavirus. Based on our calculation and assumption, the peak of the total confirmed case will be occurred in the next 2 weeks. So next will be our Q&A part, and thank you guys for listening, also for watching.